Now we are. Okay.
So then, Jeannie, I would like to ask you. Okay, so you're a mother. You've got several children.
Yes.
Would you think it reasonable to do everything to try to help one of them get really, really rich and basically not really care about the others?
Are you crazy? I love all my children. I
Right.
want them all to be successful and happy. Yes. What was the
Yeah.
point of that question, may I ask?
Well, the point of that question is obviously the way that we've got, the money or the wealth distributed in the world right now.
Oh, that is such a sore point.
It is a sore point.
I was supposed to write a paper once, and the concept was, how would you redistribute the wealth
Yeah.
amongst the world? And I could not find any valid or useful systems other than communism and the communist philosophy. And
Well, communism is what people decided to go with instead of the various actually really good options they had. Because, like, at the end of the 19th century, there were several really good writers who thought of how to distribute the wealth in a very positive way. Specifically, Henry George.
and where is he from? Give me some
Philadelphia.
background.
He's from
Philadelphia. Seriously, an American.
Yeah, I know, he's
Yeah,
American. He's
love it.
He's probably America's best writer in the economic field, and they don't even study him at all
Oh,
in
he's
school
American.
right now. No, because the reason why is because if we were following his ideas, then the wealth would not be concentrated in the hands of a few.
So explain this Henry George's philosophy to me then.
Well, I don't know if I can explain the whole thing, but the bottom line. Okay, so the bottom line is that, let's say, land and natural resources. So if I refer to land, then it means all the natural resources too, the airwaves and the everything,
And
the minerals, the oil. Okay. So all of this really was freely available. All of this was created by the universe, let's say, as part of the universe. And so the people who live here, really, honestly, if we are part of nature, then according to a natural distribution, then we are all equal owners of the land and natural resources.
So hence the question, would I rather have one rich child and the rest paupers? I see.
So let's say that we have some claim on some little piece of land. Mm-hmm. Let's say there's 300 million or so people living here. So we should have a little acre or something, because we have to live somewhere. But the way that our economic system is set up is that governments essentially grant a deed of ownership to people who can afford land. So if somebody builds up the amount of land that they have, then they can put up the price to whatever they want, because people have to live somewhere. So the price of land and natural resources is what has increased so much and led us to this situation.
Well, what would you do otherwise then?
Well, okay, right. So you can't. So it's not feasible to divide up the land into 300 million equal plots, obviously. But what you could do is what they do in Alaska, which is they have a dividend each year based on the oil that is sold. So some part of the profits that go from the oil actually get divided up between the people who live in Alaska. But what Henry George suggested, his basic suggestion, is that the fairest way to do this is to have a land value tax. So he didn't believe in income tax.
Yay.
Because if you work, you earned it. It's your money, right? So it's just so there's really no basis for a government to take away part of your income. So
if they don't have another way to get income for the government, I suppose.
Right, but so
that's what we've been dealing with, right? There is no other way.
No, there is a way, because if you tax the tax on income is much higher than the tax on, say, investment income from investments. And people are not taxed anywhere near appropriately for the wealth that they have. So people can build up wealth pretty much as they want, and with very little tax on that. So if we had a land value tax, then people who own a lot of land would actually have to pay for the privilege of owning that land, to compensate the community for the fact that they have something that is really the value of the land is actually produced by the community living there. Like if you have some land in, say, New York City, that land becomes very valuable because of the fact that there's a big city around it.
Right.
So, but why is that? Why does it become so valuable? Because of the community, but who actually reaps the value? The person who owns it.
Right.
Yeah.
So
if
say if one person owns 1 square block of Manhattan and there's a huge high rise on it with like 96 stories.
Yeah.
And all the people that are working in that building are taxed for their income.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, the guy who owns the property.
Yeah.
He's
getting richer and richer all the time because. Yeah, because I mean, right now, you pay a huge percentage of your income for living expenses for your land in your house.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, so it didn't used to be anywhere near that.
Half of your income.
Yeah, for a lot of people.
Right. Well,
so, and there's no limit to that because you can't. I mean, you can't not have somewhere to live. You have to live somewhere. So Henry George's idea is that if you tax land, the value of the land, the unimproved value of the land, not increase the tax because you put a better building on it. Don't increase that because that is what we call a property tax, and that is not very beneficial. But if you simply collect the rental value of the land, then as the land becomes more valuable, then you're collecting more taxes, and that can replace all this welfare that we give out. Because we have to give money to the people who don't have anywhere to live. To some extent, we let some of them just live, goodness knows where. But I mean, yeah. So I think if we just had a little bit more wisdom in our economic system, then we could do a lot better, and the distribution would be much better.
How would that be implemented? Like in the current, does everything have to be completely stopped and changed, or could it be implemented?
No, you'd have to do it step by step. And also you should take the opportunity while you're doing that to do it locally, so that the taxes are collected locally, which makes sense. Mm-hmm. And I mean, there is some level of assessment usually on both the buildings and the land, so it's not really all that hard to do locally. So if you collect your taxes locally, then you can kick some of it up to the state. And then the states can kick some of it up to the federal government. And then that has the advantage that if you hold the money and you give it to the federal government, instead of the federal government having the money and giving it out to the states, then you have a lot more control over the federal government. And I think we need to really limit, like, the powers of the federal government. It's just increased so much. We're not talking about
politics or religion.
Oh, that's right, sorry.
No politics or religion.
Right.
Okay. So you live in a community in Delaware that is actually using this economic system?
It was started by people who were supporters of Henry George when he was actually running, I think he was running for mayor of New York City or something.
So how does it work where you live?
Well, we actually don't own our land individually, but we own the land collectively. We have a 99-year lease, and we can renew it. It's renewable, so effectively, you have your essential ownership of the land. And then the taxes from the community. So the trustees. We have 3 trustees in the community. So there's the sort of official owners, I guess. Mm-hmm. And then we instead of paying our own taxes each year to the school taxes and the property taxes and so on, we pay it all in one lump sum to the trustees, and then they pay as a lump sum to the county.
I see.
And so
that's sort of a very fundamental way to interpret the George's philosophy, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's really no way to do it because the federal government still won't let us off our income tax.
Yeah. Right.
So you can't really have a George's system until you've really decided to do it. But even just to start off with the land value tax and increase it incrementally would be a very positive thing. Because if you have to pay tax on land, then you're going to use it better. You're not going to own land and then let the buildings on it deteriorate and let your tenants, live in
squalor.
Yeah. So
Or leave a abandoned building there for
Right.
27 years, right?
Yeah, so
Because
many
you're
many
paying for
cities have abandoned buildings all
Many
over them.
cities, yeah.
And that's because there's no incentive for the owners to do them up. But if they were having to pay a land value tax on the land,
Regardless
instead
of
of on
building
the
is there.
tumble down building,
Right.
then they would do something about it. So
It would encourage them to use the property
yeah,
so that they could pay their taxes off the use of the
and so
property.
then I think people would let go of quite a bit of their land, and there would be just more and more land available, and it wouldn't be anyone. And also, eventually, you could get to the point where you don't have land ownership as such; that everything is sort of collectively owned, and you basically just think of land as something that you lease, I guess. So anyway, there's many different ways. Joseph Stiglitz actually did a very good YouTube somewhere in there about an economic system. I forget what it was called, but he did a very good one.
Joseph Stiglitz.
Stiglitz. He got
Okay,
the
well, look
Nobel
him up.
Prize for economics
Awesome.
a while back. Yeah,
How long ago?
5 years.
Oh
Maybe.
yeah, not that long ago. That's
Yeah,
pretty
not
good.
so long. Yeah, and anyway, there's lots and lots of people now thinking how to, challenge all the disparities in wealth because
Yeah.
it's not right.
Because before you had an eye into the rest of the world, like through the internet, you have an eye everywhere.
Yeah.
And it wasn't so apparent when I was growing up that there were so many people living in such hard conditions. But now, especially after being overseas myself, you just see people living here are so I don't know, they don't value their life, their land, their community, their blessings, and there's people in the rest of the world who don't have anything. So there has to be a way.
Oh yeah, this country will come around because this country is pretty amazing.
This is the best. Well,
I don't know about the best.
Not okay. Sorry.
But it is pretty amazing because it has the capacity to just sort of get redirected and really move off with enthusiasm. Yeah. It's a young country.
Well,
it doesn't have the baggage.
Enthusiastic, yes.
Yeah.
And even as a country with the changing demographics, it's still quite remarkable.
Yeah.
That so many things can come and become part of your everyday life when it's so foreign to you.
Yeah.
And then it becomes so part of your life that you don't even notice that this is quite progressive compared to other countries in the world.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't actually realize that.
So I guess I see all this as like this is a time when the feminine values are really going to become more and more embodied.
Well, that's the thing.
And that is a feminine value.
That is a feminine value. You want all your children to be
empowered.
Have the same opportunities, just like Eleanor Roosevelt with the rights of the child.
I'm not opposed to people making a load of money. I think that's fine. But I can't see why some people should have 50 billion and another, say, 50 million people should have practically nothing. That I don't get.
Right. Well, with my work at the UN, there's this Millennium Development Goals, and when I first heard them, I thought they were so ridiculous, and they wanted to raise the number of people living on more than $1 a day, and I was like, what? $1 a day? They're living below $1 a day?
Yeah.
Anyway, so actually that was only in 2000 when that was implemented, and it was, it wasn't wildly successful, but it's definitely raised people's awareness.
Yeah.
And it facilitated the construction of programs that are helping people. And women in particular, the ones who benefit the most, because they're the ones who are raising the children and who are holding it all together, frankly.
Yes.
I agree. So is that it?
Well, that's good. This is a good start, Jeannie. Let's do it again.